Okay, I just want some words to describe the relationship between two sets of data. Like, so if you've got X and Y, some words that we use to describe the relationship. Now, one of the main words that describes when you're talking about the relationship is the correlation between the data. Now, the relationship could be positive or negative. Okay, so it can be positive if basically it is going upwards, or it has a positive gradient. Like if you look at a line going that way, it has a positive gradient. So if that was X and that was Y, as the X increases, the Y gets bigger. But a negative gradient, and that would mean it would have a negative relationship, or a negative correlation, would be when the data is going downwards. And if you put a line of best fit through that, that line would be negative. It would have a negative gradient. You can make an N out of it for negative. Then the relationship could be strong, which is very, very close to like a straight line. Very, very strong if it is exactly on a straight line. Moderate would be a little bit out from that. And then quite weak. Weak would be like, you can still see there's a relationship and it's going that way, but it's not as strong as the other two. And then on top of that, you could have something that just has no relationship whatsoever, and that one has no correlation or no relationship. Now, the other word search I went through before is just the independent data. So the independent data is down on the horizontal axis, because that's what goes in, and the dependent data is on the vertical axis, because it's what comes out. Now, you can name the relationship when it's in a graph, but if you look at whether something has a negative or a positive relationship, then you're looking at basically if it's going to have a negative relationship, then as the X increases, the Y will decrease. And if it's going to have a positive relationship, that means as the X increases, then the Y increases. And you can see that from the graph. Like if it's negative, right? If it's negative and it's coming down, then basically as the X increases, you can see the Y's getting smaller and smaller for the bigger numbers. Whereas if you were looking at increasing, if it's going to increase and it has a positive correlation, then what that means is as the X value gets bigger than the Y value, can you see it's going up? And this one here would be going down, and you can make an N. That's how you know definitely that it is negative. Okay, so I just want you to have a look at these two statements and see which one you think has a negative and which one has a positive correlation. So if you look at the first one, if you train for they're training for the 100-metre finals and the time to run 100 metres. So that means the more you train, so if you increase your training, so if your training increases, then what will happen to your running time? The time will decrease. So as the first one increases, the second one decreases. That means that would have a negative correlation. Let's look at the next one. So the next one is basically the number of children in a town and the number of schools. So the number of children in a town, if that increases, so if you increase the children in the town, then what will happen to the schools? So the number of schools would increase. Okay, so that one would have a positive correlation. Because as X increases, the first one increases, the second one will also increase. And that will give you a positive correlation.